Is this the end of lovable Ignis? Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We're finally back for some more King of Fighters. Hopefully this time we'll be able to, to finish this one. As per usual, if for whatever reason you still haven't done so, support Thorgi. Link at the top of the description, like always. And let's get into this.
Nest team, who would act as the rivals to the heroes of the game. It was made up of Coola Diamond and Foxy, makes sense, but then the final two spots were brand new characters. First up is Angel, a wrestler from Mexico who was given super strength by Ness. She's super playful and carefree, and is also the only character in the series who can give Mai a run for her money for the title Most Overly Sexualized KOF Character. However, there are two things that I have to point out about her. One is that Angel is a massive Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson fan. Well, I mean, for legal reasons, they can't actually say that, but she taunts with the bullhorn, she references The Rock's catchphrases, and she even has multiple moves that are direct references to The Rock, including his iconic The People's Elbow. So, that's a really fun little detail about her. But forget all that. None of that matters right now, because now I get to finally talk about what I've been looking forward to bringing up the most throughout this entire video.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, I don't know if Thorgi's ever going to talk about it, but why does Angel use cat language? Why does she say neon all the time? What is that?
Why?
Is there a lore reason, or is that just how she speaks? Is she just like acting cutesy like that, I guess?
I get to finally talk about how Angel was created. You see, in 2002, a game came out called Rage of the Dragon, made by Mexican developer Evoga. And the staff at Evoga were big SNK fans, so they wanted this game to come out on the Neo Geo arcade cabinets, but in order to make that happen, they would have to get in touch with Breezesoft. Luckily, many of the founding members of Evoga were former testers for SNK, so they still had connections with Breezesoft. So they...
You know, I mean, that's really cool. Well, Mexican developers who grew up playing these games also play-tested the games, want to make their own game, kind of in honor, or inspired by the games that they played growing up. Yeah, that's neat.
It's surprisingly common in indie development. You'll see a lot of games that are inspired by the things that they grew up loving.
What else are you going to use as your starting point? This is the thing that I love, and this is what I want to make,
Flew out to Japan to hammer out the details of this deal, and while they were there, the staff at Evoga just happened to mention that they were big King of Fighters fans. So, one of the guys at Breezesoft said, "Oh, you're big KOF fans? Well, we just happen to have a King of Fighters 98 arcade cabinet just sitting right here. How about we play a few matches?" So, the staff at Breezesoft and the staff at Evoga went head-to-head with each other, and Evoga was winning, and Breezesoft started to get a little bit salty about this. I mean, Evoga was coming into their house and beating them at their game. They were not going to stand for this. So Breezesoft said, "All right, you've been winning so far, but now we play by house rules. And in house rules, we pick our 3 best players, and you pick your 3 best players.
Okay.
And they each pick one character to form a team, and they go head-to-head with each other." So the guys from Evoga said, "Oh, that sounds fun," but then the guys at Breezesoft said, "Hold up, I'm not done. How about we make things interesting? How about a little wager? Let's say, if you win, then you get to create a character, and we'll put them in King of Fighters 2001.
Oh
But
my God.
if we win, we get to create a character that you have to put in Rage of the Dragons, and you owe us $5,000.
Damn.
To which the guys from Evoga replied, $5,000? Oh, okay.
You got yourself a game.
Jeffrey? Break out, Lucille.
And the team from Evoga proceeded to whoop the Breezesoft team.
Damn.
Then they turned around and said, "Hey, that was fun. Thanks for the match. One busty, scantily clad Mexican wrestler, please." And so Angel was born, even named after Evoga's director, Angel Torres. And over the years, she's gone on to be...
Yo, the face of a man who just beat a dev at their own game. What an absolute Giga Chad. Yo. And you would expect the people who literally developed the fighting game to know the ins and outs of every single character's animations and frames and how to play.
It's actually really not uncommon to have, like, teams that are not nearly as good at the game as some of their like, even, like, average people who are good at their games. Like, they obviously know the ins and outs, but they're not going to be cementing, like, They play the game a lot, obviously, but not in the same way someone who is a fan of the game would play the game a lot.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't expect them to be like pro-level fighting game player, but I think especially for fighting games, at least for all the dev teams that I know of, like the people who worked on the gameplay are kind of experienced with fighting games as a whole. And
Yeah,
so,
of course.
yeah, they would normally be
I'm
pretty
not
good at
saying
their
they're
own
bad
game.
at the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just saying stories like this aren't super uncommon.
Where people who grew up playing these games would probably be better because this is just their lifeblood. Yeah, it makes sense why they won. Oh, and also shout out to them for, busty Mexican wrestler lady. Like, I appreciate that very much.
In 2005, she was even voted the third most popular SNK character. Gee, I can't imagine why. It's also worth pointing out that Angel is the reason why Diana isn't in this game. Yes, you might have noticed that Kula has two parental figures watching over her, Foxy and Diana, and Foxy was playable in this game, so why not Diana? Well, originally, Diana was going to be in this game. They even had several sprites drawn out and a moveset in the works, but then they lost this bet and had to put a brand new character somewhere, and this team was the only place that made sense. So Diana was scrapped, and to this day, she has still never been playable in anything.
No!
Now, I know that story on Hell might have been long and complicated, but you haven't seen anything yet. Because the final member of Team Nest and the last member of this roster is K9999, who most fans have come to refer to as K49. You see, after K-Dash betrayed them and Creedle turned out to be a flop, Nest decided to make one last push to create the perfect weapon. So they kept cloning Kyo's DNA over and over again until they were satisfied.
As one does, yes.
How many tries did that take? 9,999. Yes, K49 is named that because he is the 9,999th Kyo Kusanagi clone. One more and they would have gotten a free sandwich. K49 is violent and aggressive towards everyone, especially Foxy, who he hates bossing him around.
Okay, now this might just be sci-fi stuff, but I feel like if you're cloning somebody that many times, like, how would those genetics really last throughout those different duplications? Like, wouldn't it slowly deteriorate over time at this point? Or is that not how that works? I don't know.
I mean, it depends if it's iterative or if it's like a fresh start each time.
In this instance, it would be like a fresh start with different alterations to it slightly, depending on the previous iterations and how they worked out.
But for some reason, he has a friendship with Angel. He finds her playful attitude tolerable. He has flame powers like Kyo, but because he was cloned almost 10,000 times, his body is unstable, which has also given him shapeshifting abilities.
Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah, and he's also totally just Tetsuo from Akira. All the way down to literally having the same voice actor, quoting Tetsuo's lines from the movie, and this is his big ultimate super move. Now, you know how I've said...
Yeah, actually no, I can't say that. That'd be a spoiler. Oh god, I'm glad I caught myself. we'll talk about it when we get there.
SNK loves to make legally distinct homages to characters from other series. Yeah, this isn't legally distinct. This is just flat out Tetsuo. And this has led to the biggest mystery surrounding the King of Fighters franchise. You see, a rumor began to circulate that SNK, or I guess Breezasoft or Eolith, or who even knows at this point, was sued by Otomo, the creator of Akira. But this never actually happened. However, K49 would be removed from future games after 2002, which made people think that something was up. And you might be about to say, well, what if they just didn't want to bring him back? Lots of characters only appear once or twice in the King of Fighters and then never return. Yes, good point. Here's the thing though. They didn't just keep K49 from appearing in future games, they attempted to scrub any evidence of his existence from the earth. In future mangas and games that retold the events of the NES Saga, K49 was completely absent. In the King of Fighters 14 gallery that reprinted art from previous games,
Kingdom Hearts 1. It's never mentioned again, ever. And in any of the worlds or games where you go back through the Kingdom Hearts 1 worlds, it's not there.
They
do not have the rights to it and could not talk about it again.
He was edited out of the official Team Nest artwork. And then when SNK put out a character encyclopedia for the game's 15th anniversary, this was what his page looked like. I am not kidding. Oh, but the mystery gets even deeper from there. In 2019, when KOF fan blog Power Geyser interviewed SNK community manager Jonathan Crispy Kaiser Campagna, they asked him about K49, and he said, quote, "You can't talk about him at SNK at all, even if anyone wishes, for legal reasons." And to back that up, in the same year, a fan asked the mobile game King of Fighters All-Stars Twitter account about K9999, and they replied, K-O-O-O-O? I don't know who that is. All right, that seems to back up Campagna. That's pretty cut and dry. Except it's totally not. Because in 2013, long after they had begun trying to erase him from their games, he appeared as a card in the mobile card game KOF Cross Gauro Densetsu, implying they actually could still use him. And then in 2015, former SNK artist Falcoon said that the reason K49 was locked away wasn't for the reason you think. If you think it was for legal reasons, then a lot of other characters would have been banned as well, and the real reason for his disappearance is very peculiar. What the hell does that mean? Yes, the situation with K49 has remained one of the wildest secrets in fighting game history. However, not to jump too far ahead here, but in King of Fighters 15, K49 would return just with a massive redesign and renamed to Cronin. And after Cronin's reveal, Campagna went on the SNK Discord and said, quote, "I had to keep the lie going for years," implying that everything he had said about the legal problems surrounding K49 was all just a big prank. Which, hey, I like a good prank as much as the next guy, but that still raises the question, okay, then what exactly is the reason for K49 being scrubbed from existence? If I had to take a guess, remember Breezesoft was making this game, but they still had to take orders from Eolith, and K49 was another character that Eolith thought up and told them to implement. And if I had to take a guess, I'd say that the staff at Breezesoft might just not have liked him. This might have been a character that was forced on them and they never wanted to create in the first place. I mean, SNK did enjoy making references with their characters, but this goes far beyond just being a reference. And the name? K9999. I'm sorry, I know that some people love that name, but it's insane. There are some names that just roll off the tongue. This
Definitely
name
not this
puts
one.
speed bumps on your tongue designed specifically to trip it up. So, in the future, when Breezesoft ended up breaking free of Eolith and gained complete control over King of Fighters again, maybe they just said, "Oh, thank God, we don't have to use that character anymore." Then when people started asking them, "Hey, whatever happened to K49? Was it a legal problem?" SNK realized they could have some fun with their audience if they just decided to lean into the mystery because it would get people talking. And considering I just talked about this for like 5 minutes, yeah, mission accomplished. It got people talking. Again, that's totally speculation on my part. We still have no idea what the correct answer is. But Occam's Razor says the simplest answer is often the correct one. And we didn't put him in here because we didn't like him is a pretty simple explanation.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, from Bumble's video, he had concluded that it was probably more so like an advertisement sort of thing, like a marketing ploy to get people to talk about a character, to make theories about them, to actively await more news about them, and then all of a sudden they drop the DLC for KOF 15 just randomly out of nowhere and call a character Cronin, but then he has all the same moves as his character, so what does that mean?
It feels a bit of a long game to have planned that out for KOF 15 in particular, but it definitely seems like they probably didn't include him because they didn't want to, or they just didn't have space for him, and then the speculation they leaned into it just became a running joke in the office, probably.
Like, at that point, we should just keep this going. And everybody who was a part of King of Fighters was in agreement that whenever we get interviewed about this, we'll just leave some sort of cryptic message and just not talk about it. That was insane.
So, there. That is your entire roster. That's the gameplay. That's the presentation. Let's actually see how this story ends. After you win the tournament, you are taken up to a blimp for your big party, only for the blimp to turn to a space shuttle that is taking you up to Nest satellite base. But before you can reach it, you're put to the test by another high-ranking Nest agent, the sub-boss of the game, Zero.
Me!
Okay, time for wordplay. As I said, Zero was a Nest agent who went rogue in the last game. But Eolith hated Zero's design and they thought he was way too easy, which, Yeah, he was
Yeah,
too
it
easy,
kinda was,
and I have
apparently.
to admit, he does kind of look like he's one polo shirt away from just being a soccer dad. He's not really that intimidating. So they wanted to essentially salvage the character, so they came up with an elaborate story that the Zero you fought in the last game was a clone of the real Zero who went rogue, because Nest is really bad at keeping their experiments in check.
I mean, this is kind of the issue when you introduce clones into a story. Look at the Spider-Man clone saga, for instance, where it becomes a very convenient excuse to just say, oh, that was a clone of this other clone. And so we could add on things more and more so until we get to whatever desired outcome we need.
That? Well, good thing it was a clone.
Yeah, with the whole Spider-Man being like, you're the actual clone, but then wait, no, we swapped the DNA samples. You're the actual real one now because people didn't like that. So, it's okay, guys. Everything's fine. Stop burning down the building. But you know, like I can understand why you would want to do something like that. It fits with the themes of this saga, obviously. And you don't know like when the next KOF is going to be, or if it'll ever exist in the first place. And we just want to make cool fighting game characters, so I'll forgive it for that reason.
He then changed his face to resemble Hydrant's friend Ling, created a clone of himself, a clone of a clone if you will, to replace Ling, and then the original Zero clone was the big boss you fought. I'm so glad Eolith decided to come up with this convoluted story rather than simply creating a new villain. Thanks, guys. I'll leave the does he look better debate up to you guys, but as for his difficulty, yeah, he is way harder this time around. This is the sub-boss of this game, and he's harder than the final boss was in the last game. He's got all the same moves as the last hero, the spike cape, the black hole, but now he's faster, more aggressive, and he's got 3 strikers of his own he can call out, which I will say is a great idea. I mean, the whole gameplay gimmick of the Nest Saga was strikers. It feels odd that none of the bosses ever used them up until now. He's got Glugon, his genetically engineered black lion who does a flying claw slash.
Of course. I mean, the giant black lion hopping it is actually pretty darn cool. I do enjoy that.
Resurrected Chrysalid, who does his big wind kick. And lastly, the mysterious Ron finally enters the fight. His striker ability seems pretty weak at first. He doesn't really do any damage, he just forces you to stop blocking.
That animation is really cool as he rises out of the ground as like a skeleton and then it slowly morphs into a body and then demorphs.
Yeah.
But did I mention that
Really
Zero
fluid.
has a full screen black hole attack that you can't dodge, you can only block? Guess when Zero likes to call Ron out? Now, when you get to the Nest base, you're confronted by the Nest Inner Circle, including its founder and the organization's namesake, Nest, as well as his secretary Misty and his son Ignis. Now, of course, you can pick any team that you want, but canonically, the hero team is the one that faces him down. And Ignis reveals that K-Dash, Whip, Kula, and the rest of their creations were made to be their army of super soldiers. That's why they removed their memories, so that way their emotions wouldn't get in the way and they'd be totally loyal to Nest. Yeah, that didn't really work out.
People don't have emotions if they don't have memories.
Yeah, you don't have any basis to have those emotions off of, obviously, and it's not due to any, like, neurons firing within your brain that create that at all. It'll be fine. Things will work out.
Ignis then reveals that his father has actually been dead for some time, and Ignis had developed a god complex. He began boosting himself with Nest super science, and now that they created the ultimate warrior in K-Dash, all he has to do is defeat K-Dash to prove that he has ascended to a level of power beyond any man.
Look at this fucking image. Revile me. What is this guy on?
Also, he says he gives K-Dash his memories back, but as we will see in future games, that didn't happen. Either that was a mistranslation, or SNK decided to retcon it. There's going to be a lot of that. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Nest team is watching the skies, wondering what is happening up on the satellite, only for K49 and Angel to betray and kill Foxy, as K49 had...
Is that why we never see Foxy again? No! Fucking Angel. Damn you, K49.
learned the truth behind his creation, and he had grown sick of Foxy looking down on him. Although again, they did eventually retcon this so that now Foxy had only been injured and she did end up surviving. Back up on the satellite, the final battle commences against Ignis, and you know how I've been talking about how tough King of Fire bosses are? Well, you're probably wondering if they're all really tough, which one is the toughest? Ignis! It's not even close. He's fast, has massive reach, a dozen different attacks.
What the
does
shit is that?
insane amounts of damage. He can juggle you around with his whip that then perfectly combos into his super moves. You're out here playing King of Fighters. This guy is playing Guilty Gear. He's even got an insta-kill. They don't call it an insta-kill, but it's a super move that does 100% of your life.
What?
That's an insta-kill in my book, and the move goes on and on and on. Like, eventually this isn't even about doing damage to you, he's just styling on you at this point. Out of every boss I have fought gathering footage for these videos, this is the only one I couldn't beat without using one of the buffs. The only way that I could win against him was if I picked a one-character team, so that way they had the highest attack and defense, and then set Ignis's life bar to 25%. And even then, he still constantly whooped me. But he will eventually be defeated. At which point, he wonders if this is the end of lovable Ignis. Another line that makes me...
Is this the end of lovable Ignis? Didn't you tell them to revile you just a second ago? What is this man on?
Yeah.
Another line that makes me crack up every time that I read it. And he decides that if he can't be a god, then he's going to bring the satellite down and destroy the Earth. However, and again, this is one of those things that isn't really explained in the...
A reasonable crash out, yes. If I can't rule over the world, then no one can have the world. Blows it up.
games, but the reason everyone survives is because Ron turned on Ness and diverted the course of the satellite into the ocean. K-Dash and his team escape, only to find Kula floating in the ocean, having been defeated by K-49 and Anhil, who escaped and went on the run.
We need the Kingdom Hearts soundtrack to start up right about now.
When you
looking to carve out
walk
their own
away.
path away from Ness. Lynn leaves to go on the search for Ron. Maxima heads back to Canada to visit his friend's grave and report to him that Ness was defeated. And so K-Dash, Whip, Kula, and Diana all head out. The survivors of Nest experiments were now free to finally create a future for themselves.
Oh my.
This is a great ending for these heroes, but it's not my favorite ending in this game. I have to stop to mention the Team Japan ending, which sees a huge change happen that would have an impact on some of these characters moving forward. In the end, Team Japan splits up again and Kyo tells Shingo, his #1 fan who had been following him and trying to live up to his example, that he should quit. That he's not meant for this life. Being a fighter is...
Just some words of warning, Shingo. Get a life. Whoa. Whoa.
Wow.
Brother.
A fighter is too tough and he's just not cut out for it. Shingo is heartbroken. All he ever wanted was to be a fighter like Kyo, and now he's being told by his idol that that will never happen.
Man, this
so
really
sad.
this really is the moment where you never meet your heroes, man. Never meet them. Poor Shingo.
He's about to have the syndrome moment.
He's left sitting there alone, crying, feeling like a joke, like he's worthless.
Wait, imagine if Shingo gets possessed by Orochi powers and then becomes an SNK boss in an upcoming title because of this betrayal of trust as the villain arc begins.
No, Shingo.
Only for a voice to call out to him. You require might, boy? Shingo turns around to see the voice belongs to none other than Saisyu, Kyo Kusanagi's father and the man who trained him. And he promises that he will train Shingo until he's even stronger than Kyo. I am a sucker for stories where the plucky young guy who tries hard but everyone counts out finally gets a shot. And this is a great example of that. It's like the anime version of Rudy. And that brings the Ness saga to a close. As you can tell, it was a far more story-heavy saga than the last one, but it's a story that struck a chord with many audiences. It is the tale of a massive evil organization that took the face of this series and produced a line of soulless blank reproductions of it. And the only way that it could be defeated was for the survivors of this tyrannical cartel to split off and form their own teams that continue to fight on for their own freedom. I guarantee you this was not meant to be a massive metaphor for what was happening at SNK at the time when they began making these games, but it is crazy how much it lines up. But jokes about the real-world development of this game and the story of the game itself being almost identical aside, I have to say, I really did enjoy this saga. Sure, the gameplay, even at its height, was a step down from where the Orochi saga left off, but I've always been a sucker for stories of rebels with no homes finding one among themselves. And when you
I feel like there's more to invest into it than just like big evil dude who does like evil. Right?
Well, you got to start from somewhere. But yeah, this this saga certainly had like its downsides, but because of that, it also had a lot more things going for it, with all these characters and many intriguing plot hooks. So, well, maybe it could have been better. I still think this was a good direction to move in for this saga as a whole.
It might be a stretch, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of the plot of Guyver.
I mean, considering how many anime references we have here, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little inspiration from that. I think about it. I don't recall if there was any mention of that being like an inspiration for any points within the story.
No, but there's. I think it's just kind of a story that was popular in that era, that just kind of style. But also kind of, I think Guyver also has some inspiration from things like Geiger and just, very similar vibes.
Yeah.
Look at characters like K-Dash, Maxima, Kula, and Whip. These are characters who had been put through so much, being tortured, being hunted, having everything taken away from them, even their memories and their names, but they continued to fight for their freedom, proving that even if they had lost their past, they could still create a future. Also, there was a subplot about Dragon Spirit that never really amounted to anything. Yeah, that plot just kind of wraps up. But outside of that, there were still so many great new characters introduced, and some incredible developments for returning characters. The path that Kyo went on is an arc that many other franchises would have been afraid to attempt with their protagonist. And when you consider SNK was doing all this while going out of business, while having a new owner trying to sabotage them, while switching to a new developer in a completely different country, it is nothing short of a miracle that these games got made at all.
Yeah, the fact that the game exists is already something that we should appreciate. Similarly to Zero Time Dilemma, I would probably
It's a
say.
bit of a happier ending here, but yeah.
This one turned out a bit better because, my goodness, the SNK team are just built different, and they will go above and beyond in order to make the fighting game that they want. Even though I would
shade
really
to
say
the
it's
Zero Time Dilemma team, but that's a rough one.
I mean, the ZTD team did give us some pretty funny memes.
But this period of KOF history wasn't over just yet.
What is Joe doing?
King of Fighters was now back under a more stable house.
Thank goodness.
Okay, sure, it was still being split between two companies in two totally different countries with massively smaller teams than before, but at least the people who own the games want it to exist. After the last couple of years, we're taking...
Yeah, man. It's such a low bar. But yeah, it does count as a win at this point. Like, we'll take what we can get, man. At least you guys want us here. Oh boy.
As a win. But now that the Nest Saga was over, there was one big question that needed to be answered. What was the next storyline going to be? That's a really big decision to make, and not to spoil things for later, but let's just say King of Fighters still wasn't in its new permanent home at the moment. It wasn't quite in the right place to start developing a brand new plotline. If only there was something that they could do at the end of a storyline to buy some time before the next game came out. Something that had already been done after the Orochi Saga, so that way this could be a new regular tradition for the series. Oh right, the Dream Match. Yes, just like King of Fighters 98, KOF 2002 was going to be a Dream Match.
Not gonna lie, I kind of love the illustrations for their profile pictures here.
Yeah, this art direction is cool.
canon, there wouldn't be a story, no new characters would be added, there'd be no character endings, it would be a basic meat and potatoes fighting game. And as far as dream matches go, this one feels a little odd to me. I mean, this was meant to be the send-off to the NES Saga, so of course let's get rid of the strikers and drop the teams back down to 3 people. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure many people were asking for this, but it does feel like the dream match for a saga should kind of be an example of the heights and peaks of that saga. Yeah. It should maybe use the gameplay of that saga. Maybe it's just me. However, outside of that nitpick, the game plays pretty darn well, and it is a pure and simple King of Fighters. 3 meters for Super, Max Mode returns to its more classic form, and introduced a brand new mechanic known as the Hidden Super Desperation move, and that name is incredible. These were big, flashy super moves that could only be performed if your life bar was low enough and if you had 3 bars of meter, making this the first King of Fighters to use 3-bar supers, something that would appear in later games and is a staple of many other big team fighters. I should point out that KOF 2000 had supers that used multiple bars as well, but they were just bigger versions of your normal supers. The Hidden Super Desperation moves were actually unique. These were special attacks that they made just for this super. That just goes to show that even though this was a dream match, Breezesoft wasn't resting on what they had already made. They did work to up the production value of this game, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the stages.
Yeah, I mean, they do look pretty darn good. But I wonder if this was one of the first fighting games that had a super like that. I mean, using 3 meters and having a specific life total in order to be able to activate it, and it's like a unique thing. Because in Grand Blue, there is also the Super Skybound art, the SSBA, that you can only activate when you have less than 30% health. Maybe it becomes like a staple in fighting games moving forward from here. Unless we already had an example of that before now, but I can't recall.
I have no idea.
Stages look great. They're loaded with the energy that you would expect in a KOF stage, and they're filled with references to other SNK characters. I find myself distracted in these fights because I keep wanting to look into the background to see what Li Zhongfei and Han Fu are doing. And oh my god, it's T-Zoc! Look at him back there! Look at him just staying there! Oh god, he's so cool! And as far as the characters themselves go, some of the sprites were reused, but many other sprites were completely redone to make them look crisper and cleaner, meaning that this is the game that introduced a very important element in the KOF legacy. Kim's pants. Yes, Kim Gabon's pants looked fine in the previous games, but now they put so much work into making them look like they were flowing and flapping around with every single motion.
They're flowing like water,
Kim's
man.
pants became a running gag in the King of Fighters fanbase as people treated them like they were their own character. But can you blame them? I've seen fighting games that didn't put as much work into entire characters as the amount of work that is put into Kim's pants in this game. Look at the amount of in-between frames in that animation. It's almost hypnotic.
I hope the cosplayers make sure they have
Like a
super
lava
flowy
lamp.
pants.
But while we're talking about the roster, that is another nitpick that I have with this game. It's kind of weird, because this roster actually does a pretty good job of capturing teams from different generations of KOF. But then there are some really obvious staples of the series that are shockingly absent. Let's run down them, shall we? You've got Team KOF 99 made up of K-Dash, Maxima, and Whip. Team Japan made up of Kyo, Bidimar, and Goro. Fatal Fury is obviously Terry, Andy, and Joe. Art of Fine is the classic Ryo, Robert, and Takuma. Ikari Warriors is Leona, Ralph, and Clark. And interestingly enough, Leona can actually transform into Orochi Leona if you do one of her supers. Psycho Soldiers returns to the classic Athena, Sai, and Chin, and just speaking personally, this is my favorite Athena design in the entire series. The Women Fighters team is Mai, Yuri, and Mei Lee. Team Korean Justice is back to the classic Kim, Chang, and Choi. But now we get to the interesting choices. These are teams that are actually all based around different installments in this series. Representing KOF 98 is the returning Team Orochi of Yashiro, Shermie, and Chris, who all have unlockable Orochi forms.
Makes sense.
Team KOF 97 is the returning Team Outlaws of Yamazaki, Blue Mary, and Billy Kane.
Not this to you again. Blueberry, what are you doing out there?
Take it, Blueberry.
Then Iori, Mature, and Vice represent KOF 96. KOF 2000 was represented by Vanessa, Seth, and Ramon, and KOF 2001 was represented by the NES team of Kula, K49, and Angel, each of whom can serve as the mid-bosses depending on your performance throughout the game. So yes, they decided to make teams specifically to represent each of the previous King of Fighters. That is a brilliant idea. But do you notice a few glaring omissions? Shingo, big fan favorite character in each
Damn.
chapter of the NES Saga, not here. Many of the new characters created for this saga, not here. None of the bosses make any appearances. And King,
Poor
one of the
Foxy.
most iconic characters for this series, who had been here since the start,
Oh, that's right. We didn't have King in Team Weapon Fighters. No, King.
is now gone. At least from this version. The Dreamcast version of the game would add Shingo and King back in, and the
Oh.
PS2 version would add Geese Howard, Gainitz, and Orochi Iori. So yeah, it's a decent roster to start with, but a
Interesting,
couple of
okay.
those console-exclusive characters feel like they should have been included at launch. However, there were 2 other characters worth mentioning. There was now a dark evil version of Kyo, simply
Whoa.
called Kusanagi. Again, this is a dream match, so there's no story here, but it's implied that he's another clone created by Ness who has a hatred for K49. Why does he hate K49? Because Kusanagi's voice actor is the same person who voiced Kaneda in Akira, and K49's voice actor voiced Tetsuo. And if they fight each other, they do have a special intro where they just quote lines from Akira. Yeah, Eolith really want to shove some Akira references into these games for some reason, but unlike with K49, I actually support this one. Because if you remember from part 1 of this video series, we said that one of Kyo Kusanagi's early designs was 100% based on Kaneda
Yeah.
in Akira. And
So
now
we're
they
just
have Kaneda's
continuing
voice
that.
actor voicing a version of Kyo Kusanagi. This is not a reference, this is destiny being fulfilled. And the final boss is once again Rugal. Now find you aboard his floating airship, which oddly enough is something that will come up in a later canonical game. They did lose all the
Oh.
Giga references in his stage design, but I do love the giant mechanical jacket that lowers down around him. And hey, guess what? Rugal is hard. I know. Shocking, right? He's still not as
Breaking
hard as he was in
news.
King of Fighters 94 simply because that version of him was literally broken and just read all your inputs. But after that, yeah, this might be the worst. He's basically the same as he was in King of Fighters 98, but he's more aggressive and I don't know, maybe it's just his sheer intimidating aura, but it feels like his sprite is even larger than before. It feels like he can now reach that foot of his out and just
It's just so intimidating that he appears larger than life. Wow, that's great character design.
hit you no matter where you're jumping on the stage. Now again, this was a dream match, so there was no ending for the characters, but they did have some clever ending credits where they reused sprites to have the characters act out skits, and some of these are pretty clever. And some of them are like something from a fever dream. Enjoy this army of tiny Changs, everyone.
What the hell?
I think the stress of the past few years was starting to get to the devs. Now, King of Fighters 2002, it's good. Not great, but it's a pretty solid King of Fighters. It just feels a little bit lacking. It just feels like it could have used a little bit more content. Like it was hindered by too many problems with the development. Like it just didn't have the resources that it needed to make a great dream match.
I mean, you could almost say that about all of the SNK games, and yet some of them turn out great somehow. And despite all that pressure and lack of resources.
Luckily,
Unlimited match. Yeah, this is the one I'll play with Kane later this week. Looking forward to it. It looks amazing. Hey, Foxy's here too. Okay. Yeah, we're just getting a lot more characters that we're missing out on. This is this is so anime.
It's so up its era.
Yeah, I do. I almost love it in the same way as like I love Persona 4 Golden with its style, where this is a very particular point in time, and like no other point in time has ever had this sort of, I guess, flavor to it, and I appreciate it for that.
Yeah, it's the early 2000s edge.
2002 Unlimited Match.
yes, as I said in part 1, we're going to mostly talk about the re-releases in part 4, but just like King of Fighters 98 Ultimate Match, I have to give this game its own special spotlight. 7 years later, in 2009, King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match was released, and this game is a competitor for the best game in the King of Fighters series.
Really?
Again, it's a dream match, there's no story or anything to cover, but King of Fighters 98 Ultimate match felt like an upgrade to King of Fighters 98. King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited match feels like a brand new game.
King Cup one still
For
have the
starters,
great
the
pants,
gameplay
though.
uses the same mechanics as KOF
We'll
2002, but it feels so much smoother. This is some of the cleanest combat in the entire series. Listen, I'm sure that someone out there who's far more knowledgeable than I can give you an in-depth summary of all the changes that got made to this game from 2002, but I can't exactly put my finger on it. It just feels better. Although I do know that several of the characters did get new moves, and many of the big level 3 supers were now completely reworked to make their inputs far more simplified.
Sports team.
And many of these characters got brand new level 3 supers just simply because they wanted to make them look better and make them bigger and flashier. And speaking of flashier, oh my goodness, these are quite possibly the best stages in any King of Fighters. Every inch of these
They
stages
look
is
good.
loaded with so much life and energy, and the Easter eggs. Finding all the SNK characters in these backgrounds is like its
Yeah.
own game of Where's Waldo.
Noticed a ton of them.
You see dozens of SNK characters hanging out or interacting in these stages, many of them changing from one round to another, and there are
Oh.
some deep cuts in there. Did you ever think that the 2 original characters made just for the 3D Fatal Fury game would ever appear in anything again? They're in these backgrounds. These stages might be the best love letter to the history of SNK that you will ever see in a game. And for the roster, well, heck, you've got eyes to look at. This is the largest roster of any King of Fighters ever, with over 60 characters.
Jesus
and it finally
Christ.
feels like a true salute to
A
the
lot
NES
of
Saga,
characters.
as every single character from those games got to come back. Except for...
Hello.
Yeah, except for K49. This was in 2009, and
Oh,
this was
K49.
deep into the we
Yup.
don't know who that is phase of SNK's history. But aside
I mean, if you notice on the top left here, we have a character called Nameless.
from him, every character from the NES Saga is here, including Kyo 1, Kyo 2, and Kusanagi, meaning this game has 4 different versions of Kyo. We went from SNK planning on getting rid of Kyo for this entire storyline to having 4 versions of him in a single game. But in addition to the NES characters, this game also brought back several characters from the Orochi Saga, including Hydern, who was once again on the Masters team with Takuma and Shin Gensai, Gainit, who was a single entry character, and Geese Howard, as well as Nightmare Geese, who, for anyone who saw our Fatal Fury retrospective, knows is essentially the overpowered evil spirit of Geese Howard. In
Yup.
fact, aside from Saichu, Aiji, Krauser, Mr. Big, Chizuru, and
No!
yeah, them, this game contains every character from the King of Fighters up until this point, including one brand new character. Kind of.
Oh.
Yes, in a game with no story, what better place to introduce a brand new character who is loaded with story? This is Nameless, and despite the fact that he isn't canon, there is a lore behind him that could go bumper to bumper with anyone else in this series.
What the hell? I mean, obviously, this is a kind of a stand-in for K49, but did we really have to go so hard on the lore in a game without any story? That's a K. Calm down. Jesus.
SNK decided to give him his own big sweeping storyline that is totally separate from the rest of the KOF cast. Although you might already know part of it. Nameless was the 9,999 clone of K-Dash, and you've all figured out why he's here. Yep, he was put in here to substitute for K49, and the two of them do play similar to each other, but outside of that, his origin story is very different. Nameless was created on a NES space station on Mars, which feels so out of place alongside the rest of the KOF series, but again, this isn't canon. Nameless's backstory kind of feels like when an anime gets a movie and suddenly they're focusing on some brand new character and they're dealing with magic and time travel and other crazy stuff that never comes up in the main series. On this Mars base, Nameless was trained to become the ultimate assassin, but his powers kept injuring him. But he ended up meeting a young woman named Isolde, who was essentially the precursor to Kula. She was another part of the anti-K program,
Oh.
but just like Nameless, she was having problems controlling her powers. But the more time they spent with each other, the more their powers began to work, and eventually they fell in love.
You know, maybe it's just recency bias, but this almost reminds me of Project Shadow from the Sonic lore.
Yeah, I was gonna say K-pop Demon Hunters, but same thing.
I still haven't seen K-pop Demon Hunters, actually. I should watch that.
Really?
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun.
But then Isolde died, and Ness thought, well, being around her made Nameless's powers work. So let's take her DNA and transform it into his robot arm. Yeah, they
What the
went
fuck?
full bionic
Damn.
commando on this one. So Nameless, like all the other Ness characters,
Yeah.
ends up betraying Ness, runs off, and is searching for a way to restore Isolde to her old body. And I went through that entire long explanation just so you would know why a giant ghost woman appears when he does his level 3 super. Speaking of Ness, as I said, this now felt like the true salute to this saga, because unlike the original 2002 game, now all the Ness bosses are here. Chrysalid, Clone Zero,
Oh,
Original
God.
Recipe Zero, and Ignis. And which boss you fight depends on what kind of a move you use to defeat the penultimate enemy. For example, if you beat the final enemy with a regular move, then you fight Chrysalid. If you beat them with a regular super move, then you fight Clone Zero. And after you beat
Interesting.
the Ness boss, the game ends.
That is interesting.
Unless you are able to pull off the crazy list of special conditions that you have to do to unlock the secret boss. Yes, there is one final secret boss fight.
Well, to be fair, I'm pretty sure Guilty Gear Strive also has something like that. Or one of the funny games that we
Yeah,
played.
I mean it's common in games at this point.
Yeah, where it's like you
Secret
have to
bosses
beat
are
the
fun.
boss with a super move in order to get this extra bit of dialogue or go down this particular branch in the story and stuff like that. Guess it makes sense for fighting games. I was never good enough to actually do them at the time that we were doing them. Maybe I could do them now, but dubious.
That you can unlock if you don't lose a single match, and if you either beat the Ness boss without losing
Yeah,
a character,
freaking
or if you finish
Arcade
them off with a
Nagoriyuki.
super. And what threatening, all-powerful, unstoppable, evil force could warrant such a heavy requirement? It's Rugal. Of course it's Rugal. It will always be Rugal. However, I'm going to admit something to all you. You see, Rugal plays in this game exactly like he did in the original 2002, except for one twist. And it's because of this twist that this is the only King of Fighters boss I have never been able to beat. Don't get me
Damn.
wrong, I still
No.
think Ignis is the toughest boss in the series, but I can at least re-challenge Ignis. In King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited match,
Oh,
You
you
have
have
to
to redo
not-
the requirements.
Oh no, dude. Oh no. No. This is
That's
reminding me of Path of Pain in Hollow Knight. That was a stream that I spent like 6 hours trying to get through the one
That
section.
broke you for weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened during Path of Pain, but you were not the same.
I am a changed man now. I was never the same again after Path of Pain. As like with Hollow Knight being the like one of the first platformer games I ever really tried to play, I don't know why I put myself through that. I'll be honest with you. But Path of Pain has this gimmick where if you die during the final section, you reset all the way back to the very beginning of Path of Pain. And that's exactly what happened to me. I made an agreement with chat saying that if I got through this one last section of, jumping off of the buzzsaw, I have won Path of Pain. I don't need to defeat the boss at the end. And yeah, we all agreed to never speak of this again and considered that I had beaten it. Because most people don't even challenge it. I did get through the entire thing, but it's the journey
No,
that
it's
counts.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Maybe someday I'll go back if I really hate myself.
lose a single match and finish the boss off with a super just to get to Rugal, and then you only have one shot at beating him. You lose, game over. And to make matters worse, remember the special edit teams? Yeah, remember how if you beat arcade mode in the previous games with your own special made team, then you would unlock some artwork for them? Yeah, that wasn't in the original King of Fighters 2002, but it came back for Unlimited match. However, the only way that you could unlock the special
Is by
edit
beating
artwork
Omega Rugal.
was if you formed a special team and then you managed to beat Rugal. If you
What
beat
the
the regular
shit?
boss,
Oh
you
my
don't get
God.
it. You have to beat Rugal.
I'm
Oh
gonna be
my
honest.
God.
At this point, I'm just gonna learn how to rip game files apart and go and find those myself if I
Right.
really want them. Because I
Just go
ain't
to
doing
Turkey.
this. Well, this is like Serby trying to fight Lingering Will on critical mode. Like, I don't know how you do it, Servi. I don't know.
No, it's not the same because lingering will you can immediately retry.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. It's fighting against lingering will, but then you have to play through the entirety of Kingdom Hearts again in order to get there. Holy shit. Oh god. Oh, we shouldn't give them any ideas for the next Kingdom Hearts game. Oh. Actually,
I give Kingdom Hearts credits. Once you unlock the super bosses, they're just there, and you can just keep retrying them with nothing in your way.
yeah, thank goodness. Especially with how bullshit some of them could be. But,
Oh yeah.
have we heard any more news about the next Kingdom Hearts game? Because they, like, teased it, they revealed it, and then it was radio silent ever since.
Not for a while, yeah. It's been pretty quiet.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that until we mentioned this. Huh. Weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, if you wanted to unlock any kind of reward through single player mode, you had to climb this impossible mountain. But you know what? That's fine, because Kingdom Hearts 2002 Unlimited Match is a game that's primarily focused on playing against other people. It's a game for hanging out with your friends on the couch, or for duking it out in the competitive scene. And sure, it's got some balancing issues. I mean, heck, there's a character in here that has an infinite. But for the most part, it succeeds. It's incredibly fun, and people to this day are still playing it, especially now that it received a rollback netcode update, making it feel great to even take online.
Looking forward to it.
And that is finally the last game that we're going to talk about for part 2. The Nest Saga has now come to an end. It was a series of highs and lows, but in the end...
I mean, it's a journey of highs and lows in the lore, as well as for the company.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because this was like the first time SNK went bankrupt. Like, oh no!
Yeah.
Oh boy, what are we in for the next part?
This was a series that defied all odds just merely by existing. However, that is not the end of our story today. Because you might be thinking to yourself, wait, so SNK went bankrupt. What does that mean? And why is there still an SNK today? Yes, to give you all a refresher, in October of 2001, SNK went bankrupt, and SNK's founder, Aikichi Kawasaki, along with 5 other developers, had split off to form Breezesoft, and the King of Fighters rights had fallen into the hand of Korean developer Eolith. Well, when SNK went bankrupt, Aruzi started selling off every SNK property to anyone that wanted them, and Aikichi Kawasaki wanted them.
Sam
So he created another new company, Playmore, specifically to buy up all of SNK's IPs. Now, you might be...
What? What is this passing of hands? Like, we'll buy this, we'll acquire this, and we'll sell it back to you for profit. Well, damn.
Wondering, why did Kawasaki have to form another new company? He already had Breezesoft. Couldn't he just use that company to buy up all the IPs? I'll be honest with you, I've looked into this, and I can't figure it out. This is a mystery to me. If I had to take a guess, though, I'd say that since he founded Breezesoft with several other devs, then they might have had some power in the company, but if he founded Playmore all by himself, then he could have full control over any SNK properties they bought up. But again, that's just a guess. It could have something to do with the law or with legal issues that I know nothing about. The important thing is, it worked. Kawasaki got to work capturing old SNK franchises like they were Pokemon, and then proceeded to merge Breezesoft into Playmore, and then began hiring back several other former SNK developers for his new company.
So it's basically SNK all over again.
But he still had to get King of Fighters back from Eolith. However, Eolith was also going through some financial troubles at the time.
Oh no.
And selling off their hot new franchise would sure help him out. And wouldn't you know it, Kawasaki just happened to be an investor in Eolith. Meaning, he had some influence over who they would sell that property to.
The reason I'm telling you all this is because I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top.
Yeah, I'm beginning to believe those rumors that Kawasaki was the inspiration for Hyder, and this guy...
Yes! My guy has plans upon plans.
Right.
He knows exactly what he wants, and he wants SNK back. I respect it. But man, the amount of, like... potentially legal loopholes that we've jumped through as well. I gotta respect it. Gotta respect the hustle.
Guy has plans on top of plans on top of plans. Now, this all sounds good, but there is some sad news. Eolith, even after selling off King of Fighters, was not able to survive much longer and would go out of business in 2004, with their final game being... Hold on. Let me look into that. I actually don't know what Eolith's final game was. Their final game was... Oh, damn! Dark Awake Chaos Breaker? Eolith made Chaos Breaker? That game is great. It's this team-based fantasy fighter where you get special items and all your characters are based on fantasy tropes and there's secret unlockable bosses. And oh my god, it's so good.
Holy hell, what is that elf mage wearing? I need to play this game.
Seriously had no idea that they made this game before doing this video. If you have a Japanese PS3 account, then look this game up. Man, that game is actually making me even more depressed knowing that Eolith went out of business. That's a bummer. And also, as long as we're talking about sad news, even though it's great that Kawasaki got most of his properties back, it really does stink that Aruzi was able to just destroy SNK and they got away with it scot-free. Oh, wait a second. No, they didn't. Yes, Aruzi bought up SNK so they could turn all their games into pachinko machines.
Yeah.
But then in 2001, after they let SNK go bankrupt and sold off all of their properties, guess what Aruzi did? They proceeded to keep making SNK pachinko machines. And hey, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but when you sell off a series that you own,
you
don't
make more.
own that series anymore.
Do that.
But Aruzi decided that didn't apply to them.
Wait, does that mean all the profits of those pachinko machines go to SNK, the rightful holders?
Or they're just gonna sue the shit out of them.
And they were going to keep squeezing money out of these games despite the fact that they couldn't legally do that anymore. What? The massive gambling corporation that bought a beloved game developer just so they could strip them for parts might not have been morally upstanding and willing to follow the law? No! I'm shocked. But you know who wasn't shocked? Kawasaki, who now owned all these franchises Aruzi was trying to make money off of. So he took Aruzi to court and successfully sued them for $57 million. So the SNK franchises were back under one house. Aruzi had been punished. The developers were all coming back together again. And in late 2002, Playmore started reopening their American branches with plans for more global locations to be open.
What the hell? Man, like, the NES Saga had its ups and downs. I think the history of the company itself is more intriguing at this point. Right? Like, what is happening? I imagine, like, the thought process and the deals and the plans that were made behind the scenes for all of this to come back together. For the team to come back together. It's like Avengers Assemble again. Jesus.
Right?
They got Thanos stabbed by Aruzi, and then they came back to team up again and beat the shit out of him. Like, wow. That's insane. This is so fun. Ooh.
And afterwards, the only thing missing was the name. And after months of legal actions and bouncing from one deal to another, on July 7, 2003, Playmore announced that they would officially be changing their name to SNK Playmore.
SNK.
The company was back and King of Fighters would get to live on. Well,
on a wild
for
ride.
a little bit. Because if you think that this series is now in the clear, do I have some bad news for you. Because the evil cold cartel Aruzi might have been defeated, but a whole new mess of problems were about to rear their ugly head in the next story arc. Problems that ended up becoming a much more serious threat to the King of Fighters that this series couldn't hope to escape.
How does it get worse?
Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in to part 2 of our 4-part King of Fighters retrospective. Although at this point, it's basically the SNK retrospective.
The history of the company is so damn interesting.
As crazy and complicated as this one, but that doesn't mean there still aren't wild stories and weird twists on the way. That was not some cliffhanger ending that I just decided to throw in there at the end. No, King of Fighters is about to go through a whole new struggle in part 3. So if you want to see that episode, and considering that you made it all the way through this one, you probably do, then remember to hit the subscribe button and ring that bell so that way you'll know when the next episode goes up.
Thorgi.
And you can also follow me on Twitter at
by the way.
Arcade
that was awesome.
To be kept up to date when future episodes are coming. Yeah. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone.
Well deserved.
Stay safe out there, and come back next time.
What a twist.
What a twist. Jeez. Legitimately, you might be the inspiration for Hyder with these plans. And yet, how? How do so many obstacles keep getting in the way of SNK? What is this? You just hear about, like, companies screwing over their fans and their audiences But it feels like everybody else is trying to screw over SNK.
Right? This is the opposite. The company's trying so hard just to make good games, and everyone is out to get them for it.
So strange. I thought company was evil. But yeah, man, shout out to Thorgi and for covering all this. This is so interesting.
Yeah,
I'm so glad
good.
that we got into fighting games. And now we're learning about more than just fighting games. We're learning about office politics now, too. I didn't think I'd be into this, but I'm here for it. I'm invested.
Behind the scenes in different studios, but man, I feel bad for SNK.
We'll see where it goes from here. That being said, I do think probably next week we won't dive into part 3 just yet. Gonna have a bit of an intermission there because I do want to check out some of the Grand Blue character designs with Serby next week. And we'll do a character designer ranks video. Now,
that'll be fun.
I'll talk about it more in that video, let's say. But look forward to that. Yeah, anything that you want to add here, Serby? Your thoughts on this saga as a whole, or SNK, or whatever?
There's been a roller coaster that I did not anticipate going into this series, and I'm loving it.
Hell yeah. That's gonna do it from us today, my dudes. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.